Welcome to the Where Do Gays Retire podcast, where we help you in the LGBTQ plus community find a safe and affordable retirement place. Join Mark Goldstein as he interviews others who live in gay-friendly places around the globe. Learn about the climate, cost of living, healthcare, crime and safety, and more. Now, here's your host, Mark Goldstein.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Where Do Gays Retire podcast. Today I have two special guests. We have Robyn Meltzer and Susan Brennan, and they're from Palm Springs. And they're here to tell us all about what we want to know about Palm Springs. I'll tell you a little bit about both of these ladies. Robyn is a human resource executive with extensive experience in a diversified business and culture. Her expertise in the areas of people strategies, talent management, organization assessments, facilitation, curriculum development, and career coaching. She currently has her own practice providing human resource consultations and trainings to all levels of employees. Prior to starting her own business, she served as Vice President, Talent for ARYZTA and Vice President, Human Resources for the Otis Spunkmeyer Company. Don't they make cookies?
Yes.
Okay. Earlier in her career, she had leadership roles for Genentech, Lucas Digital, and Levi Strauss. She received a graduate degree in organizational development at the University of San Francisco, as well as her Bachelor of Science degree from Utica College of Syracuse University. She's currently a professor at the College of Desert Partnership and Community Education, PACE program, instructing on human resources best practices. She has served on boards of California Association of Student Councils and Inroads. She currently is on the Palm Springs Library Foundation Board. And Susan Brennan, she's been practicing a chiropractor and running her own business for 30 years. Currently, she's retired and living the dream in Palm Springs, California. Her original degrees were in English and a master's in psychology. She graduated from Los Angeles College of Chiropractic. She has taught ages 3 through adults. She wrote a course called Multiple Level Approach to Musculoskeletal Problems. Did I say that right? I probably
Musculoskeletal problem.
Thank you. She taught in Holland, in Sweden, and Australia. These experiences convinced her that learning needs to be hands-on and interactive. She has mentored other people wanting to learn some of the techniques she used. The background will hopefully help her develop an educational program that is fun, effective, and experiential learning. We remember more when we have a cellular memory of information. Well, without further ado, ladies, I welcome you to the show. Thank you so much for coming, and we're going to learn a lot today about Palm Springs. Hello to you both. Welcome to the show, and tell our audience where you moved from and why you decided to live in Palm Springs.
Like a brief summary, I spent about 4 or 5 years in Washington, D.C. and worked in the D.C. public schools as a school psychologist. And I just felt like I was emotionally getting drained. So I wanted to move to California. I had been there before. I taught in high school there. And I was in Southern California and felt like I really wanted to be in Northern. So I moved there. That's really where I had my practice for over 30 years. It was my home. I moved there in 1976. And Robyn and I both moved at the same year, but we really didn't meet each other till later on. And we both in our development and professional life, I was getting tired because I did everything myself, and Medicare kept changing rules, and they do all this stuff for like 1 or 2 billing codes. Anyway, I was feeling frustrated, and I wanted to break. So it just seemed like when Robyn started talking about getting burnt out at the corporate level, that maybe this was our opportunity I was over 65, and I felt like I could certainly retire. And Robyn will kind of fill in, but we just really decided we'd sell our home, and we boxed everything up, and we took our dog and drove across country for approximately, over 4 months. We kind of had Palm Springs in the back of our mind, but we wanted to look at other cities and states and whatever. But really, nothing jumped out at us as we were in Austin. We went through the South, Florida, Carolinas, Georgia, and we just felt like California was going to be the state for us, and Palm Springs was top of the list. We wanted to be in a warmer area, gay-friendly, and so that's how we got here. And we rented for a year before we did buy here, and I advise people if they want to do that, because you learn that there's a high percentage of people who buy here and in the first year they move because they're not in the right neighborhood or they're not in the town they thought they were going to get their activities. It gives you a little more flexibility.
So a little bit about myself. I was originally born in Lower East Side, and then when it was time to go to public school, we moved to Brooklyn. And so born and bred in Brooklyn, and from a very early age, I had this travel lust and didn't know I was gay at the time. Went through college, and I studied occupational therapy initially and used the internships as a chance to scout where I wanted to live, unbeknownst to my family. I knew New York was not my place. I've always felt like a bit of an alien there, and I always had this dream about California. And my first internship was in Palo Alto. I knew nothing about California. I luckily ended up, and I say that, in the Northern California, because at the time, I was a big Northern California snob. So I had a lot of growing up to do. And I think the Bay Area at the time, as Susan mentioned, in '76 was an amazing place to be. There was so much good stuff going on, and San Francisco was just breathtaking. So I was in the Bay Area. And then when I met Susan and decided we wanted to move in together, we started looking. And I was in Marin, and Susan was in the East Bay, and we realized that what we could get for our money in the East Bay was definitely more affordable. So we ended up in the East Bay. We were there for about
10 years.
10 years. And then, as Susan said, I had total corporate burnout at that point. The last place I worked, which was ARYZTA, that had bought Otis Spunkmeyer, and then they started buying other companies. And it was just time for me to say goodbye to the corporate world. I was fried. And that's when we just, like Susan said, we put all our stuff in storage, did 3 garage sales, and then we started saying, where do we want to end up? And we wanted something more low-key than the Bay Area. But as Susan said, we had a checklist. And the checklist was it had to be by an airport, it had to have culture, it had to be gay-friendly, and what else do we really want? The food scene was important to us because coming from the Bay Area, we were so spoiled. And we wanted affordability. We didn't want to be house poor. And if we were going to stay in the Bay Area, that we knew I'd need to get another corporate job, and I just couldn't do that. And we also knew once we left the Bay Area, there was no going back in there because it's just not affordable. And we made a really nice life for ourselves in Palm Springs. And the only issue with Palm Springs, and that has to do with climate change, I feel, in the last 2 years, we've seen the weather become a bit unbearable in June, July, August. Mm-hmm. And this year was the first time we successfully got out of Dodge. We left at the end of July, and we were in Santa Fe, New Mexico for a month. And on the way back, hit Sedona to transition back. And we're back in Palm Springs, and it rained the other day, and life is good.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to tell our audience a little bit about us and our connection too. The way I got together and met Robyn and Susan is through Robyn had grown up in the same neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York as I had. And I grew up with her brother, Stephen. And Stephen introduced me to Robyn and said, you should get in contact with her because she lives in Palm Springs. And I did. And when we met online for the first time a few weeks ago, it was like we knew each other forever. You get that feeling.
Yes.
And that goes for Susan too. So that's how we all got together, which is kind of amazing in itself. So we'll get into the nitty gritty about Palm Springs as well. So can you explain to the audience, in case they don't know where Palm Springs is located within California, can you kind of like tell our audience where it is located?
Well, basically, it's Southern California. It's inland from San Diego, and it's south of LA, probably realistically an hour, 20 minutes, depending on, like, if you're going all the way to the coast, it might be an hour and 45 minutes, and it really depends on the time of day. But in general, we think we're located very well because we can take advantage of museum exhibits in LA. We went to see Hamilton in LA, and we actually have flown from Palm Springs to San Francisco to see exhibits at the De Young and San Francisco MoMA exhibits. And it's an hour flight. And so it's very affordable and easy to get around. Also, we can go, depending on the time of year, but we can go in an hour and a half drive to the ocean, really to Mexico, to the mountains and snow. So it offers you a lot of different flexibility. And we're near, if people are familiar with Joshua Tree, and it's really just a wonderful park that you can hike and be outside. And there's just so many ways we can enjoy the environment. And I will say, living in Palm Springs, one of the attractions for me was I'm from a small town of about 40,000 in the Midwest, and Palm Springs was around that population. Now, I think with COVID, we're seeing an uptick in the population. The good part is more younger people and people that are working and remote. But it is bringing a little bit different flavor into the town. When we first got here in the stores, people were like, hello, how are you? You'd get to talk a little bit about your personal life. And now it's a little bit more stodgy. And I don't know if that's because people are coming and they're here working and they don't need to know who you are because they got to get back to work. So that feel is kind of, I'm sifting through that because I like the kind of hometown feeling.
Yeah, that you
and where we
everybody
live,
knows one another.
Yeah, where we live, we do have to take the car most of the time to get places. Everything's within 10 minutes, but if you walked it, it's more than a half hour plus. And that was what we found kind of neat about Santa Fe. We walked almost every day, and that was wonderful for us. So we laugh when we're back here. We kind of miss the walkability, but there are things we absolutely love, and there were things that got clarified for us because we're pretty fortunate that we have a fairly good healthcare system here. And I think California in general has a pretty good health system for people. And we found that people in Santa Fe, most of them, if they had serious health problems, they went to other states.
Or they'd have to go to Albuquerque.
But even Albuquerque.
Tucson.
Yeah.
Denver.
Yeah, it's not the greatest of healthcare.
No.
Albuquerque.
So we feel lucky. We have, like, within 10 minutes, a stroke center. We have really good cardio, cancer, especially women's breast cancer research here. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot in terms of healthcare that makes you feel safe and comfortable. Because, hey, if you have to deal with this, you've got some good resources. And we still have UCLA, Cedars-Sinai, and they're all very accessible.
And it's interesting that at this stage of our life, healthcare becomes a major concern, just knowing you have access. And one thing, we love New Mexico, like Susan said. I love the weather. I love the people. Now, Santa Fe is a bubble within that state because the state's pretty poor, but it's also pretty liberal. We saw a lot of, and I love the integration of the indigenous, the Native American people, which you don't see as much in Palm Springs, even though we are on Indian land. But when we talk to people about who moved there, the big issue was healthcare and the lack of people, and also not great care once they did get doctors. That becomes something I never, like in my 30s, would have put on the list.
Right. Yeah, it's very, very important. In fact, healthcare is like one of the top things. I mean, climate, yes, that's pretty much a given. And healthcare is really next.
Yeah.
on my
Yeah.
list at least, because we're not getting any younger, and we're going to need health care, and we're going to need good health care
Yep.
as well. And we can't wait around waiting 3 months for an appointment. That's very important. So tell us about the climate in Palm Springs. I know it's similar to Phoenix.
Yeah, well, it's a little hotter, I think, than Phoenix. And I think one good thing for both of us is that we both love heat, and that's a good thing. But we've seen an increase in humidity here, because usually people who live in Phoenix and Palm Springs, they always go, it's dry heat. It's
Dry heat.
Well, the dryness is getting a little wet. So, I mean, some of that I think is part of the climate change piece to it. But at this point, it's definitely doable. I was saying very seriously, but my cousin thought I was joking. I said, hey, next week's going to be really good. It's going to be cooler. It's going to be in the 90s. But for us, that's a big change from
Me too.
like the high hundreds. So it's something, if you love heat, this is a great place to be. We have access to how many pools? We've got 2 pools in our community, one right across the street. And the mountains here are absolutely glorious. The light on the mountains and just the clouds, I felt were so beautiful with the whole rain thing. So
I would say, this is generalizing, October to April is pretty good weather. Like when everyone is freezing and my family's in the 20s or even below, more than that, we're sitting out and having coffee in the morning and eating lunch out. And then the thing that's changed, because the summer before last, we had 120 over 18 days. And after that, you don't cool off. This year, it was more like 105, 108. But the humidity, everybody said it is so much more draining in a way that
Do you
you
get
just
monsoons?
feel,
Do you get monsoons?
Well, we're getting the monsoon effect this year, and we, quote, had a little bit before, they'd say, we might get a storm. But this year, that humidity just upped and upped through a good part of the summer. And so people, even though it was 105 or 108, they'd say, oh, I'm just exhausted. The humidity is killing me. So that is kind of in a flux of what is going to happen in terms of that. But the winter, the spring is wonderful.
It's
and
gorgeous.
We've had young people come visit, and they're just fascinated that we can have snow on the mountains, 70, 80 degrees, and palm trees. And it's like right out our front door. And this one young woman just kept saying, oh my God, this doesn't even seem real, because it does seem kind of a tweak in the brain that we can have snow on the mountains and walking outside with this T-shirt and shorts on.
Oh,
So there's something magical about the weather, even though we are seeing some more challenging. The wind last spring was maybe we'd get 2 to 3 weeks, and now I think we had a good part of May and a chunk of June. So we had a couple of more weeks of pretty intense winds. It's not all day, but it can be, but more usually like in the morning when the sun's coming up or in the evening when it's going down. That weather change creates winds through the pass. And we're at the end of town. We're in the north end of town. And people advise you, don't live there because of the wind. And the south end of town, it is quieter. The thing for us is like in this kind of weather, when it's warmer, we still get breezes. Downtown, there's absolutely no air moving a lot of times. And if I go downtown, I feel like there's no oxygen in the air. So to me, it's a trade-off. I love sitting. We sat out this morning at 5:30, had coffee, little lights on, watched the sunrise come up. It was beautiful. And so we kind of cherished that time. And the colors of the sunsets and the sunrises on the mountains, every day is different, and it has its own magical. I'm a double Cancer. I love water, and I thought, this will drive me nuts. But I've really been happy with the mountains. I mean, they kind of have their own magic, and I've learned a whole other feeling about, if you want to say, the geology, the topography, as opposed to lakes. I still love water, but I've really enjoyed being in the mountains.
Yeah,
And,
the mountains are beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. And like Joshua Tree, and we have, Indian Canyon, because like Robin said, we're near Indian land and they have beautiful hikes. What else?
Are you in a 55 community, 55
We
plus
are.
community?
Yes, and that's something like I told you when we lived in Oakland, we were one of the highest walkability neighborhoods. Farmers market, hop on the BART, go to opera. We had a great bookstore, whatever. Probably 15, 20 different restaurants that we could go to. Here, like I said, we pretty much have to jump in a car, but it's a 5 to 10 minute drive. And the food scene here is definitely improved. It's like we came as a little bit of what you call snobs, but we do appreciate good food and good service. And everybody, we just have to really try to support our local restaurants because they've all been through such a hard time with COVID and staffing. And the poor people that are working, you really want to treat them well and tip them well because a lot of them are overworked because they're understaffed. So They're giving us an opportunity to go out and have a nice evening. And I think we should all remember to just pass on that kindness to the people who are serving and waiting on us and giving us the opportunity to have that. I think the pricing in Palm Springs, a house that you might pay $300 to $350 for could very well, a comparable house on the other end of town I wouldn't be necessarily off, but it could be close to double the cost.
Wow.
And so because we didn't mind the wind, and again, the wind has kind of upped itself in the last few years, but I love that feeling. So we were fine with that. And there's times when you think, oh man, it's so windy, and we go downtown and there's nothing. So you can get out of it if you have to.
And in our community, it's about, I would say, almost 70% gay, which we didn't know when we moved here. Do you think that's too high? Maybe.
Well, 60 to 70.
60,
I mean, it's
and mostly men.
Still a lot.
And it's been very interesting with COVID. A lot of the homes turned over because the prices went up quite a bit, and people were making their money back. But of the people that have moved in, and there was like 180.
Yeah, we're a complex of 460 homes, so we almost turned over half of it, or a good third.
And the majority of the people that have moved in are gay men couples, all very interesting, wonderful people. But where are the women?
Where are the women? I was just going to ask you that. I was just going to ask you that. Where are the women?
Yes, a lot of straight single women who lost husbands have moved in. All, again, very interesting, very, very woke around gay, and definitely we're in a blue bubble, I would say, in Palm Springs. You venture to some of the other cities, not quite as liberal as Palm Springs, and that's why we're here. One of the reasons. And we also love the town. There's a town feeling in Palm Springs. But as Susan said, it's kind of changing a little bit. It's getting a little more LA vibe. Los Angeles has had a little bit of an influence on it. And not to be disparaging about LA people, but it's changing the nature of the town a little bit.
Of the community, yeah. Okay. And if you wanted to get away from the heat, besides going to New Mexico, isn't there like a mountain like Idlewild or town?
Yeah, there's Idlewild, but it's kind of a scary little drive. There's also
Julian, Big Bear, Lake Arrowhead. They're all within an hour plus, like an hour and 10
minutes. Oh, that's great. So you can get away to about 30 degrees cooler?
20 maybe. 20. Okay. And you can always take our tram. There are people who buy a summer pass. You can go up every day, and that can easily be 20 to 30 degrees difference. And that's right. It's not even a mile from our house to the tram.
I did that once. It was, I don't think it was in in the summertime months, but when I went up there was snow. There were kids throwing snowballs, and down there it was like, it was unbelievable. It was probably in the 70s or 80s. Yeah. And then I go up there and it's like the 30s. It was pretty funny. But at least you have a getaway for the summer months, which is great.
And you can get to San Diego. You can get to Long Beach. I mean, if you want to drive.
You can do those for the day. We used to get up early, go to Long Beach. There's this
Rosie's Beach, Rosie's Park, a dog.
And dogs could run off leash, and we'd take our dog. He'd run. We'd go to Pete's Coffee, get our coffee, hang out. Then we might go somewhere and have lunch, and then we'd come back, and that was very doable. So.
Yeah, there's also, we love Pasadena. There's a lot of really good places. One of the things when I first moved here, it was that Northern California snob. And I refused to say I lived in Southern California until someone showed me the map. And I was in Southern California. And I've learned to embrace it. There's a lot of wonderful gardens. Like there's Huntington, there's Descanso outside of Pasadena. I mean, there's so many great things. And one of the things also that we didn't mention about Palm Springs is, as Susan mentioned, there's a film festival in January that kicks off the awards where all the movie stars show up. We've got Modernist, the architecture, that mid-century modern.
Is in February.
Yeah.
And then they have, like, I don't know the order, but there's noir film, there's animation, there's shorts, there's gay.
There's Jewish.
If you're a film buff, you would love Palm Springs.
Yeah.
And we also, because of where we are to LA, have a pretty vibrant live theater. There's several live theaters, and they do great productions, and they're trying to, they will revive the Follies Theater in downtown Palm Springs. It was pretty active for years, and then it fell into disrepair, and it had asbestos, so they knew to fix it up, they would need millions, but they pretty much raised it.
I mean, we have a lot of retired, like Susan was saying, like ex-actors and actresses and producers. So there's a lot of money in this town, and people are very philanthropic. You could be going to a fundraiser like pre-COVID. It was like every night of the week. I think things are starting to come back again where people are coming together. But there's a lot going on in this town. And people go, oh, you're going to be so bored. I mean, we could be so... Maybe because people are retired and they have more energy to socialize, but you could be doing something almost every night of the week if you chose.
Right.
We choose not to, and I think COVID really gave us a good chance to assess where are we spending our time, not saying yes to everything we get invited to. There's, in terms of the lesbian community, because I want to speak to that, because Palm Springs is known as a boy town. And it's true. In fact, we met people in New Mexico that they had lived there, and she said, I couldn't stand it. It was a boy town. There are lesbians. They are harder to find. They tend to nest, which is true. And a lot of them are big golfers and tennis players, and we're not on that circuit, so we don't get to see them as much. But there's a big group called the L Fund, and we go to a lot of their events. And then there's also a Palm Springs Women's Jazz. We go to those events, and there's a lot. There's definitely a women community through that. Also,
I was curious about that.
Yeah, there's the LGBTQ Center here that is trying to get more women events going on. So there are things happening.
And Rancho Mirage is really geared. These are generalizations, but if you like golfing, a lot of women move there because there's a very active community. Palm Desert has a very active tennis group. Now, it's not to say people don't play tennis in Palm Springs, right? But, and we found that there's a Sun City is in Palm Desert. And I think we maybe mentioned before, like at the Rainbow Nights at our place, there'd be 10 tables of men, and we would work really hard to get a table of women. And there's like 10 people. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Now, when we talk to the women down in Palm Desert, and they're over 55 HOA place too. I mean, they're much bigger. They've got 5,000 homes. We have 400. But they have 10 tables of women, and they have trouble getting one table of men.
Wow.
There's areas and pockets that lean towards more what we always wanted to live in Palm Springs, though. I think politically and just visually, it's more supportive to us and our lifestyle. But the Valley's easy.
Depends what you like. If you like more of being in the middle of everything, like I do. I grew up in Brooklyn, so I like urban. So I like to be in the middle of everything that's happening. I'm not really a suburb person. So I could see that, because some people just like to live in the suburbs. But
right. Well, the women here, they're kind of always kid us. the men go, we're hunters, the women are nesters. Like they just want to be at
Right.
home and they don't want to do anything. We want to go out and find activities. And
Right.
we have an area in downtown Palm Springs, Arenas. It has a lot of men bars and little restaurants. So there is a little street area, even though really the town of Palm Springs, as a gay person, you should feel comfortable almost anywhere. Anywhere, right. And the straight people are very welcoming and welcomed. And that's like what Robyn was saying. One of the nice things is there's kind of this attitude, they are our advocates. I've had friends of color saying, I don't want to be teaching white people about racism. They should be well aware of it. And it's really our job to educate ourselves. Well, the same thing you get aware of here, the straight people are advocating for you and saying to their friends, come visit. But if you're going to go in a bar and you're going to be uncomfortable seeing a man put his arm around another man or give them a kiss, then don't come.
Right.
Well, most people don't advocate like that, but they do here.
Yeah.
But yesterday,
That's great.
I think it was yesterday, we drove downtown, or maybe it was the day before, and there were a lot of people in town. And it was just so nice to see men holding hands. And
I mean, older men, you know.
All ages, just feeling very comfortable. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to live here. And I still feel very strong that I feel very safe here. I felt actually safe in Santa Fe. And again, being seen. And again, you pick your pockets. It's
Right.
But you can hold hands here. You can.
Right. It's very comfortable.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't have to think twice.
Yeah.
Whereas even in Phoenix, you know what? Phoenix is not, I mean, even though I'm in a blue pocket in a little bubble in my area because I'm in Central Phoenix, I still wouldn't feel myself or very comfortable holding hands going down the street because there are crazies around here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but in Palm Springs, I wouldn't even think twice.
Yeah.
That's the kind of atmosphere. It's like live and let live. You do what you want and nobody cares.
Yeah.
And I think at this stage in my life, that's what I want. I want to feel
too.
safe, and I want to feel seen, and I don't want just to be around gay people. I love some of the straight women that we've met and even older men that we've met, but mostly it seems like straight older women have been more, and they're all interesting. And to me, it's about people. The thing I miss sometimes is I'd like more variety of ages. Like when I went to visit my friend in LA, she lives in Pasadena, and we went out to some ice cream place. I'll never forget this. And I go, oh my God, everybody's so beautiful. And she goes, no, Robyn, they're just young. I just hadn't been around young. And that's the thing that strikes me when we leave Palm Springs. Although, again, retirement is a whole different concept than it used to be. The people that we've met, the gay men that we've met, they're active, they think, they read, they travel. It's not like sitting on a porch.
Right. Rocking on a rocking chair.
Yeah, no, it's totally changed, which is fabulous for us.
Yeah, I look for diversity too. Diversity and just to be welcome and safe.
Yes.
That's really important.
And I will say, living in over 55, you're kind of put more in your face about our lifespan, because even on our little street, we've probably had 4 deaths within the year. So we have, this man down the street, he's so sweet, and he just lost his wife. And then the man lost his wife. Then the woman lost her husband. And then we have a friend, he lost his husband. We have another friend who lost his husband. And you just think, it makes you stay very precious about, hey, don't put off what you can do today because you might not have tomorrow. Yeah. And
That's exactly.
I miss the age range. That was one thing that was nice about Santa Fe. Now, when we go downtown, of course, you see young kids and families, but in our neighborhood walking, because we're over 55, you don't see many young people, and at the pools are limited very much, like 1 hour a day for the relatives and grandkids. So that gets a little tweaked. But in the big picture, if you had told me I was going to live in a place like this, I'd say, oh no, I'm really into the community. I'm this, I'm that. And yet when we moved here, we had no friends in Palm Springs. I had one friend I went to school with in Palm Desert. So we really knew no one. And that was another reason we thought, let's just live there. We'll get a chance to meet people. And like Robyn said, we didn't realize how gay it was, but it gave us an entry into the community here, but into the city of Palm Springs, because the people were involved in things and they'd tell us about organizations and groups. And as Robyn said, we have an amazing gay center here, LBGTQ. And again, due to men who gave seed money, a couple gave like $1 million to buy this building, and they've raised money. And the big service they're providing right now, not that they don't give social things, they do. And they teach like Spanish class, tap dance, painting, Spanish. But mental health, it is growing exponentially in their services. And they said there's such a need for it right now between COVID and isolation, bereavement.
Yep.
It's big. And luckily they're meeting that. And we've been very fortunate. There's a group who've gone down valley because we have a lot of Latinos in southern part of the county that can get invisibilized. And so they've opened a center there. And they're doing really good things for the community within the whole valley.
That's good.
So that's great.
And there's a big food bank that they not only through the center not only service gay people, but the whole community. And it's amazing the number of food insecure families there are. They just get swamped on Thursday nights for food pickups, which again, it's such a mix within our own community that we have the privilege of living amongst people who are pretty well taken care of.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So would you say it's easy or difficult to meet others, other people, other gay people? Are there meetup groups? Are there groups that you can meet other women? Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, there's a lot going on. There's definitely meetup groups. There's book clubs. Pickleball is big.
That's pretty big.
And I actually love pickleball. And so there's every kind of group you could ever imagine. And I think through the center, there's women's chat group. There's hiking groups. Again, I don't know if it's because we're older, but it's when we had really strong long-term friendships in the Bay Area, but we've been there for over 20-something years. And I think it takes time, to really build that kind of friendship. But yes, meeting people, if you're a friendly person, I don't think a person would have any trouble.
But if you're shy or then it's more challenging.
Yeah.
Because I've met people who say, and it's never easy to be single. I mean, even in the Bay Area, when you're single, you feel like you don't know anybody who's single, and even though you have gobs of friends. So I think it is challenging. And there are women and men who had partners for 25, 30, 35 years, and they pass, and their whole world gets shaken up.
Oh, yeah.
So there is that, and it always takes time. I mean, when you've had a life with someone for 30 years, it's not going to just heal in a year or two.
Right.
But there is enough support groups that if you're willing to reach out, you do get support. So
that's good. That's good. As long as the support is out there for people, or
absolutely,
people want to meet people, they can. So
yes. And on that note, in terms of Al-Anon, very, very big active groups in the valley.
Great.
Yeah. Recovery programs.
But it's also a big cocktail town. So it's kind of it's like when people say they come to Palm Springs to rehab, I'm like, really?
Really?
I mean, I think
there's so many bars. I mean,
yeah, there's like so much cocktailing going on and good cocktails. And I love it here. I just do. There's something about like Susan said, the palm trees. Sometimes, and we have this little convertible that we drive around in that's so Palm Springs, it's kind of disgusting. It's a little turquoise T-bird. And sometimes it's like, I can't believe this is my life sometimes. I'm just so happy. And I realize at this stage in my life, and I think like Susan said, being in a 55 plus, it's in your face. The biggest thing is health and mobility. Yeah. And right now we're very lucky because we have both. Knock wood.
Knock wood.
And we're not on a lot of medications. And those are things that you come very preoccupied, whereas 10 years ago, I wouldn't even been talking like that.
Right. Like,
So
who
it's just
cares?
crazy.
Yep.
So I highly
Absolutely.
recommend coming to Palm Springs. But bring the women, come on down.
Yes, we got to bring the women.
Yeah, the
So
women.
I've been there twice, just vacationing for a little bit. So I went, the last time I think, oh no, 2 times, oh 3 times I was there. We were downtown at the Kimpton Hotel,
Yes,
and
the Rowan, yeah.
which was the Rowan, which is
Yeah.
really nice.
I
Yeah.
love that. I
Really
love it
nice
there,
place.
yeah.
And we've also stayed in Warm Sands, which is
Oh,
a really nice area as well. A little more neighborhoody
Yes.
over there.
Well,
Yeah.
the next time you come, you got to call us because we'd
Oh,
love to meet you in
absolutely.
person.
Absolutely, no doubt. So tell us, what's the local economy like? Can you give us examples of housing costs, renting versus owning, electric bills, maybe water bills, gases, and taxes?
Well, I think again, it's all within context. Coming from the Bay Area, that was so expensive. For us, this is so much more affordable. The property tax, the cost, we could never get a home the size that we've got. Even though we were supposed to downsize, we're over 2,000 square footage in this house, and it was fabulous during COVID because we never felt on top of each other. We felt very lucky for that. Electricity, we have solar.
I say it's really crazy not to get solar here because it makes such a difference. And so our bills are less than
A minuscule, and including air conditioning.
Wow. So
So
how much did it cost to put solar panels on the roof?
That was a while ago. I want to say 10,000.
oh, it was more than that.
Yeah,
Between 16 and 20, but we got a federal break,
yeah, the tax break.
and now like it doesn't even run 60, 70 a month. And if anything, like we get true up, they true up really twice a year, I think. But we had a credit and it's paid for. Now there are people you can get it, no
Lease.
money down, you lease it. The company would give you that, but they got all the tax breaks. So we calculated, even not being big users, it would still pay off in 7-8 years, and we're on our 8 years.
And being that we're kind of in a drought, we're very conscious. Like we don't run like the dryer. I've got the clothes hanging outside. I can,
Oh, wow.
You know, like,
But that's how I grew up, so I love that.
Yeah.
and I do too. And we're conscious about saving water. I mean, I think you have to be conscious.
We have artificial grass,
Yeah.
so we don't water very much. Our water bill, what does it run like?
like $13. And
Yeah.
no, actually, it's a little more. It's 40 something. It was 40 something for desert water. It's gone
Well,
up.
they made a
but-
big jump up, but
Yeah, but electricity.
That's why it's so humid there, because of all the golf courses and everybody
Exactly.
watering
Ours
their.
is our own problem.
Yeah.
We've created it.
But
It's the same thing here.
It's really reasonable, and like I said, it's for us. Now there are people who come from other areas that think it's really expensive, but again, prices have gone up in restaurants because they're trying to recover. But
Well,
still,
their supply chain is really up. You talk to these people, it's amazing. The cheese, meats, they've gone up a lot. So if they're going to stay
Oh, yeah.
in business, they have to up their prices.
Oh, yeah,
And
my
as
grocery
Robyn
bill
said
went up.
earlier, we have a pool like diagonal from our house because a lot of people in this past year have put pools in, but we call it lazy. I don't want to have to be cleaning the pool if we get wind. And
I'm
so,
with you.
yeah. And so that is great for us because we just put a robe or a suit and robe on, walk over, swim for an hour or so, do the hot tub and come home. So we really love it like that. But there's other people who opt to have their own pool.
and then that gets more expensive.
Yeah.
Right.
But, again, we wanted a low maintenance house that took care of itself because we knew our passion is travel. And with COVID, we were a little landlocked for a while, but we're roaring to go now.
What
We're
would you
going
think
a little too much.
like a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home would
Yes.
cost in Palm Springs?
Depending upon where, I would say at least 600 to 700,000, depending upon where you're located. But even here in the North End, the prices have gone up. Like I go on Zillow and I look at our house, the estimate is like doubled. Remember I told
Yeah.
you?
We paid $325 in 2015. And now I think they say it's close to $550, $600. But again, it's what people are willing to pay.
And that goes up, that
Right.
goes down. But renting, I hear, is expensive.
Yeah.
It's hard to find places that are decent. That a lot of the places here are more like vacation rentals, so they come furnished. So if somebody wants to bring their own furniture, I think that's a bit of a challenge. But at least I would think, but still much more reasonable than like a New York City or an LA. But it's still not inexpensive to
Yeah,
rent.
I saw someone, they have neighborhood post things, and a guy was trying to find a rental for his friends for a couple months, and they were talking like for our house it would be like $3,000, which to me seems high.
It's not
but I
cheap.
know it, huh?
It's not cheap.
right? Yeah,
No.
but I know downtown they'd probably even be a little higher. You know,
And I
It's-
guess if you go out to the suburbs, Rancho Mirage,
No, Rancho
Well-
Mirage is expensive. They
It
think
is?
of themselves as little Richies. Rancho Mirage.
But Desert Hot Springs, they have some nice communities, and people think of it. It's kind of like San Francisco and Oakland. People from Oakland would always go to the city. People from the city be like, "Oh no, Oakland's so far away, and it's this and it's that." Desert Hot Springs has several communities that are very nice, and it's 10-minute drive. We tell people about restaurants out there, and it's like, "Oh no, I can't go out there. You have to go over 10." So it's part of your mental headset,
Yeah.
what you can do and what you can afford. And talking about casinos, the other thing about that is we have so many down here, but they bring in a lot of live good act performers. And so really you can stay close to home and still get good entertainment.
And then in terms of the economy, I mean, there's not a lot of business here. It's hospitality, healthcare, and then the cannabis industry, especially with Desert Hot Springs, has definitely blossomed and has definitely helped a lot of these communities. Like Desert Hot Springs was in trouble, and the cannabis industry has just, I mean,
Saved it.
they're starting to fix the road. You see a change there. It's still a little bit of a scary town to me. It's not a place I'd really want to hang out at night, Desert Hot Springs. But like they've got a new library, the roads are getting
Beautiful,
fixed.
yeah.
They've got some amazing spas because of the mineral pools. So it's funny. But there's the college, but there's still not a lot of like companies here that you can
No.
work for.
No.
But you can work remote because the Wi-Fi is fabulous, and
Right.
that's what people are doing.
Yep.
And you don't have the
So-
hassle with traffic and parking and all that other stuff.
Exactly. Do they have an arts and culture scene? Like, do they have theater, museums?
Yes. Palm Springs has a really nice museum, and really for its size, we have amazing exhibits. They have an architectural museum in town that kind of goes along with the modernist background, because people at those festivals, they have a small one in October and a larger one in February. People come from all over the world for the tour, and it's quite interesting because you get to go inside the homes of some of these people and you see how they designed, and you are taking tours for, I think there's like 6 or 7 main architects, and you can take advantage of it. You can take tours of the homes of stars all year. There's things like that available. I think I mentioned earlier, in my small town, there was one little theater that did live production. I mean, the high schools did stuff, but here there's 3 or 4 that are very active, and that's partly because we have these people coming from LA and really some from New York who have background in the performing arts, and
Right.
they're here.
Now, this year, we signed up to be members of, it's called CV Rev for Coachella Valley. It's in Cathedral City, which is the city next to us. And we're going to get to see the Humans, and we're going to get to see Fun Home, which you think, I mean, like some major productions. Now, it's not people coming from New York to do it, but they're gonna have really good performers. I'm very hopeful. And they created this new theater that's just beautiful. We have the McCallum Theater that's in Palm Desert. So yes, arts and culture, definitely.
You
And there's
definitely
a
have it.
place in town
That's-
called the Purple Room,
Oh yeah, that's
and
cool.
they bring a lot of great performing live dinner theater, and that's a fun evening to go to. Michael, I can't remember his last name, but
Me neither.
he is amazing. and he really gets great talent.
And then there's also this thing called the Underground,
Yes.
where they have these different, like, kind of theater dinner and themes. And I've heard that's really fabulous too. We haven't done that yet. But through the Elf Fund, there's a lot of women comedians that we're going to get to see. And then coming up, beginning of November, is when Palm Springs has their, I call it the Little Mayberry Pride Parade. And
so fun.
They have the high school show up with the bands. And that always
cool.
makes me happy to see the integration. There's a lot.
You definitely keep yourselves busy.
Oh, absolutely.
You won't get bored
No.
living in Palm Springs. So what's the restaurant scene like? I know we're both from Brooklyn, New York. I know that it's nothing like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing like. I mean, even Phoenix. When we went and visited our friends in Phoenix, the food scene there was fantastic. And we do have a deli. We have a couple of delis, but it's not like New York. We've learned. We've got some good, and there's some new ones that have opened up since we've been gone that we got to explore.
What's that famous deli that I went to?
Sherman's.
Sherman's, that's it.
Yeah.
Sherman's. That was pretty
Sherman's.
good.
I love Sherman's.
There's a selection of Italian restaurants. There's a couple of Indian restaurants. There's Peruvian. And it's
sushi.
They're good, but it's not like something you write home about. But definitely the quality overall keeps improving. And we have a place called 849. To me, it's like you're walking into Alice in Wonderland. It's just this fanciful restaurant. It's a great place to bring tourists. It's a great place to see people. And we enjoy that. Obviously, there's good Mexican food.
Oh, really?
There's actually quite good Vietnam and Thai. So the only thing there isn't really is
Chinese. And I come from Brooklyn.
No Chinese. Oh, yeah.
And speaking about 849, the man who runs it, Willie Rhines, he is so generous to our community that I always want to support him. He's opened up another place near us, and then he's got another restaurant. So he's somebody that you just really want to keep supporting because a lot of give back, actually, from a lot of the restaurants here.
Trio's the same way. That gentleman does a lot for the community.
Lulu's does too. I mean, it's just a lot.
I've been to Lulu's.
We've got our list, but coming out of Santa Fe right now, the food there was so amazing that I'm having a little struggle. But now that you mentioned,
they have a good
go out for Mexican.
Yeah, the food scene here is good too. Yeah. We just can't get a bagel. And everything bagel with a schmear. There's a
pretty decent bagel. It's called Townies.
But they're from Chicago. It's not, and you can't get forget about a Bialy.
Yeah, no.
Bialy's
forget it.
Exist, yeah.
No.
But you've got that good deli in Phoenix. I want to say Chompy's.
Yeah, we do.
I love that place.
I go there. Yeah, I go there occasionally.
Yeah.
Yep, it brings back memories. It certainly does.
And a good black and white. Where do you go?
Oh my God. Now I'm craving one of those. I'm thinking about Leon's Bakery and Mimi's Takeout.
They're closed. I mean, when I used to go, we used to get our birthday cakes from there, the cookies, the bread. Oh, God, Leon.
Yeah.
Oh.
But anyway, back to Palm Springs.
Yes, back to Palm Springs.
I will say, too, most of the restaurants offer gluten-free choices. So if you're gluten-free or vegetarian, I almost think every place you go to, you will find options for yourself.
That's good.
And LA has amazing food, by the way. When you go to Los Angeles, that's another food.
Right. That's like a New York.
Mm-hmm. And we even have a bar. It's called Booze Hound that they encourage you to bring your dogs and have them outside, and they have a little menu for the dogs. Town's very dog friendly.
Yes.
How's the traffic situation? It's not like San Diego, right?
It's not bad. I mean, in tourist season, if you go down valley all the way down, it might take you 20 minutes. Normally, it could take you 40. But if you know the area, you can cut. I can still do it in 20. Everybody takes 111 or 10. And there's other ways to get around. And the big thing is there's 3 main avenues that come in, well, 2 really, that come into Palm Springs. It's Indian Canyon and Gene Autry. If we have a bad windstorm or if we have rain, which isn't very often, we can get those closed. I know the design of them and the wind patterns, someone doesn't do a very good job on figuring out how to resolve it because, I mean, in the last couple weeks, I know they both have been closed several times due to wind and rain.
But I want to say again, in terms of going back to the food scene for a minute, I have seen an unbelievable increase in much better options than when we first moved here.
Yeah.
And
really?
So it just keeps getting better and better. And like I said, since we've been gone, there are a few restaurants that have opened that I've heard rave reviews about.
Check them out. Let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all good. We keep a good list.
I mean, we've been here 8 years and there's still places we're discovering and going to. So it's not a stagnant situation. It's pretty dynamic. And there were several people who didn't make it through COVID, but there's those that did, and there's new places opening up.
So, yeah, it's all good. Okay, how about crime? So is there a big homeless population, and do you feel safe going out at night and walking around your area?
Well,
or even downtown?
I say downtown, I mean, we're not the best examples. We're like 8:30, 9:30 people, so we're not down on the streets at 10 or 11 at night. I mean, I think in general, the homeless population is upticking. And as in every city, it seems like they cannot figure out a decent solution. They, one point, gave them housing, but it was so far out of town they couldn't get there. So, like, who thinks this up? It's like funding a program that sounds great and you only give them 10% of the money. It's never going to work. That's kind of how that feels. So I think the town is frustrated around the homeless situation, but I think that's almost every town.
Yeah.
We know that there is gang activity, but in general, I would say we feel pretty safe. But you can every once in a while hear guns going off. And I think there's several pockets where that's more prevalent. But in general, I think it's a pretty safe area. And the crime isn't like, it's more like people leaving keys in their cars and they take the car, crime. But hey, lock the car.
Lock
or
the car,
leaving the door. Yeah. So it's like in certain neighborhoods, people go around checking the doors and the mailboxes. And so it's kind of like crime of opportunity.
Yeah.
But violent crime, being robbed by gun and stuff, that just doesn't really happen very much, I don't think.
Not compared to like Oakland and stuff
that, from where we lived in Oakland.
But we keep our door, we're smart. We keep our doors locked. We lock our cars. It's not the kind of place where you just leave everything open. I think at some point it probably was like that. But, people are having a hard time these days, and they're going to look for opportunities to, like you said, for people who aren't being as cautious. But I don't like to drive at night because, to be honest with you, it's so dark here. There's no street lights.
Because they want people to see the night skies. The night skies are magical.
Right.
And when my mother came out to visit a bunch of years ago, and my siblings were hoping she's going to want to live here for at least the winter time, I said, Mom, would you ever live here? And one of her things was, no, there's no police presence. That was like a negative. But there's no police presence. You don't really, but the
see them on the street.
To be very
responsive, at least in our situations.
When things come up, and we like our police. They're very community oriented. Yeah, I mean, I have no complaints.
Yeah, and our community that we live in, I think, is very proactive all the way around, which makes it different. If someone loses a partner, people bring them food, they check on them, they try to take care of them, and there's a certain consciousness about we're extended family. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing I like about being in the HO. People are very conscious of, so-and-so lost their partner, and you talk to people, and I mean, there's a group of people that sometimes I'll make food for. Just, you want a home-cooked meal?
And during COVID, like we have some older people, I'd go out food, like I'm going to the grocery store. What can I get you? That kind of thing. And I think we all kind of watch out for each other's houses. Like when we were gone for 6 weeks, people consciously would send us little notes that they're watching for our house. And
that's so nice.
Check,
that's a good community.
for us, yeah.
Do you live in a gated community?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That helps a little bit.
Well, there's just a gate. I mean, if somebody
There's no
really wants
security
to
guard.
get in,
They can
I
get
think
through.
for the price that you pay for that, we're fine. If you start acting like it's really something valuable back there, you just attract people thinking they're going to find something.
Yeah. Oh, so what do you wish for in Palm Springs that you don't have that you may have had elsewhere?
I think our friends,
Well, friends, a little more cultural diversity.
age diversity.
Yeah, age and race, because I lived in Oakland for over 30 years. So when I first came down here, it was like, oh my gosh, it's all white people. And I'm more
White gay men.
But, it's like everywhere. Like, that's why I love our little gay pride. All the local bands, many of those high schools, they're high percentage of Latina families. They come. They have parades for everything here, and people show up. Christmas parade, and these bands. I mean, it just is fun. It's like a little Mayberry. That's what we call it, because it's not this super sophisticated area, even though we're certainly sophisticated. It's
Right, of course.
But no, we feel. I don't know. Of course, you can always say food, but we can solve that.
Yeah.
You just have to go driving half hour for. There's people who we know that drive for an hour and a half for Chinese food. Now, it's not as driven by me, but Robyn is.
I mean, if I know this one friend of ours, he'll go get up real early and go into LA for dim sum. And one of these days I'm going to catch a ride with him.
Yeah, it's something we crave, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why we don't have it, because you get all these LA Jews who come here, especially during Christmas time, and they don't have good Chinese.
Yeah. We have a few here in Phoenix.
Well,
Not
that's good.
many. Not many, but there are a few. Nothing like New York, though.
No.
I don't know if you remember Mimi's Takeout.
No. Oh,
No.
wait, yes. The rice and the gravy.
Nostrand. Yeah, rice and gravy.
Oh,
She talks about that all the time.
and anytime I can get some rice with some sauce on it, it brings me back.
Yeah.
It was like it was cold out, and you'd get your little cup of rice and gravy, and
Yeah.
I mean, and it's still there.
Better. Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Rice, gravy, and an egg roll.
yeah, yeah.
So, ladies, in wrapping up, what would you say to our audience if they're thinking about relocating to Palm Springs?
Give us a call. We love to take people around. We've tried a couple of times to entice other women to come.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't been successful.
Well, yes
we
and
even
no.
have little shirts on that we call little Palm Springs, tour guides. But yeah, come. And I think Susan was really smart in guiding us to let's rent for a year, take it through the summer, make sure. And then, like she said, you get to learn the different areas and where do you want to be. So I say come rent for a year and see if this is the right place for you.
Yeah,
That's
be
great
willing
advice.
to reach out, because the center will give you a focus, and you can find out about a lot of services very quickly and easily. And for sure, I mean, Robyn and I love taking people. When we have friends and people coming to town, we make lists for restaurants, the kind of restaurants, tours they might like to do, because there is a lot to take advantage of. And we've even had New Yorkers come and have a wonderful time. So there's
I'm
enough
sure.
good food and things going on that they feel very satisfied and taken care of.
In fact, one tour that I just want to do a little shout out for, I'm fascinated by the windmills, because we've had the wind energy forever in Palm Springs, and we actually took a tour of the windmill tour, and that was fascinating to me.
Yeah.
They don't let
Oh,
you
wow.
up in the windmill, but again, as Susan said, open your heart, open your eyes. It's a different life, and it's a good life. And politically, we got Gavin, and
And
I'm still holding on to California here.
Raul Ruiz,
Yep.
he's a good representative, and we hope to have Will Rowlands get elected
we've
for
got-
Congress against Mr. Calvert, who's
We got
totally...
Riverside County, we got some bad stuff going on there, so we got to start changing that over, and we will.
Gotcha. Well, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's definitely wonderful talking to you, ladies. And when I get to Palm Springs, I'm definitely going to look you up.
And when we get to Phoenix,
you're going to look me up too.
I definitely want to have you meet Priscilla and Diane because they're fabulous people.
Absolutely.
So, yes.
Well, thank you again, ladies, and we'll talk soon.
Yes.
Happy day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
You're welcome. You too.
Thank you for listening to the Where Do Gays Retire podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast and consider making a donation by clicking the coffee cup on any page at www.wheredogaysretire.com. Each cup of coffee that you buy costs $5 and goes towards helping us continue the podcast. Thank you for your continued support.